You're mute. You're muted.
The number one rule of Zoom.
Can everyone hear me?
Great. I'm going to start letting folks in. Hello, Roz Heiken. How are you? Hello, everyone. Thank you guys for coming on in. I'm just going to assume that Roz also said, hello, Rabbi, how are you? Because that's what I heard. That's what I saw in the mouth.
Sorry,
I just wasn't sure.
I was mute. Sorry. Yes.
Oh, God, I literally just did the same exact thing. So no reason to apologize. Hello, hello, hello.
One second. Okay.
I don't want to be on there right now.
Yes. So this is, I would say you can keep your video on. It's all optional. It's nice to see faces, but whatever you're comfortable with, if you need to turn your video off and go make dinner while I kind of tune in the background, or you find that Wheel of Fortune is much more interesting than me, it's okay to just turn off your video, your sound, and just tune in and just say hello. Hi, David.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Rabbi. Nice to see you. Nice to see everyone.
Hello, hello, hello. How is everyone today? Are we good? Nodding of heads, smiles, big thumbs up. Great. Anyone have an impressionable memory from today? Anything that stands out vividly as your day blends?
Got my COVID shot.
You got your COVID
Excited
shot.
about
Baruch
that.
Hashem. That's fantastic.
That was fantastic.
How do you feel?
I feel wonderful, but I had a time, thanks to good friends and their children, I got on. I had a hard time getting on any kind of list.
It's hard. It's hard. It's hard.
It
We're
is.
all seeking the same thing. All out here wanting the same thing. We all just want to be healthy.
Right.
That's
It's
really
just,
just
it's
what
a
it is.
wonderful feeling. And I'm just, I'm grateful to everybody.
Yes. Hopefully, our Beth Israel staff will be amongst those who are also.
Oh, I hope so.
We sure do. You send a prayer for us. Funny enough, that's a lot of what we will be kind of talking about today, is health and wellness. Funny enough, these things, they're not new in the Jewish tradition. Hello, David Scott.
Hello. Hello. And thank you, Rabbi, for leading tonight. This session is tonight and next week, next Tuesday as well. I want to let folks know about Thursday at 12. We have a lot of people who have already registered, but we'll be welcoming Joshua Furman from Rice University to talk about the history of the community, the history of the congregation, and what he's working on at the Rice University archives. So that'll be on Thursday at noon, and on Saturday at 5, Miriam and the Adult Education Committee is putting together a movie night that's going to be facilitated by Mike Nichols. After the film is called The Antidote. We're going to watch it at 5 o'clock on Saturday and then have a little discussion about it. So all of those things are available to you online through the Shul Cloud website. And we look forward to welcoming you to those programs. So glad that you're here. Glad Rabbi Sataloff is with us. And thank you for leading. This is really exciting and really interesting. Glad you're presenting it.
Yes, it may not be what you expected, David, but it will be something that definitely is of interest to me, which is a lot of the superstition we talk about. Now, I just want to be careful of time because we have so much to get through. I guess maybe I'll just ask this question. Did anyone grow up superstitious? Did anyone grow up with grandparents or great-great-grandparents who were very, very superstitious? Maybe we can hear from Linda if you're willing to speak. Linda, what kind of superstitions?
Well, I always remember looking at my father's side of the family. My uncle Morley was the youngest of 8, and he had long hair and a red ribbon, so the angel of death would not come get him.
Ah, the angel of death. I love it. Okay. I saw Johnny and Sheila Bish. My apologies. Bish. Something superstitious.
Rabbi, you have half our beginning Hebrew class here.
I do, apparently. I'm excited about this. Something superstitious?
Yeah, black cats.
Black cats.
Black cats, ladders.
Black cats, ladders. The usual. Roz, I saw your hand.
Yes, my grandmother, if she said anything good about any of us kids, she would always go poo poo poo. She
Poo poo poo.
she didn't want the evil eye to get her for bragging.
Yes, yes, yes. I love it. See, we're all sorts of superstitions. Yes, Miriam and Bobby Friedman. Yes, yes,
Hello,
yes.
can you hear me?
We sure can.
Go ahead.
Something
Okay,
superstitious.
so I'm first generation. My mother from Romania, my father from Russia. Yeah, can you hear me? No,
Yes.
Okay, so my mother was from Romania, my father from Russia, so I got a lot of Romanian Russian superstition. And again, the cantor was a big one. You couldn't say anything, like you look really healthy today, because that was inviting the evil eye. But there were so many more. I mean, about not going barefoot because mourners go barefoot. And I can't even remember. There's so many of them. It was in Brooklyn, it was a way of life.
In Brooklyn, it was a way of life. I feel like that's the title of my next seminar. In Brooklyn, it was a way of life. Okay, I'm gonna get jumping in here because all of you brought up exactly kind of where we're going today. I'm gonna share my screen with you. Can everyone see? Everyone can see. I'm gonna try to do both. I'm gonna try to both see all of your faces and some. Make sure you guys can see the screen. Okay, so just FYI, a little bit about me and the way I teach. So I move quickly. So we're gonna go through a lot. If you want to say something, just raise a hand. I won't put you on mute unless you want to be on mute. But I invite all sorts of questions. But I'm just giving you a heads up. We are gonna move quickly. But every single slide is attached to a link, and that link will lead you exactly wherever the resource that I've used. So when I send out these slides to everyone who registered, if you click on something on the link, it'll take you exactly there. And so today we framed our course like this. We're going to talk today about Lilith and amulets, and I framed it as this. The story of Lilith and amulets, the problem and the solution. And you will understand why I framed it in that way, because Lilith is a class unto its own and amulets are a class unto their own. However, I only have 2 classes, so I'm going to try to knock off a big piece today that'll hopefully set you up for next time when we come back together to talk about all sorts of demons and animals and everything else that's kind of in the periphery. But right now, Lilith is going to be kind of our set induction. It's going to create for us what is the problem. And you guys articulated that so clearly. Lilith, the problem. Okay. Question. This is a little scandalous. I apologize. I mean, this is just modern art. You're all adults. However, what stands out and what biblical imagery is identifiable? I don't know what happened to my English there on that one. Yes, Johnny.
Snake.
A snake. Good. Where did the snake come from? Where's our snake from?
Garden of Eden.
The Garden of Eden. Exactly. Lilith, what kind of pose is she in with the snake?
Who?
Seductive.
Oh.
Seductive. Are they close or are they separated?
Close.
They're close. Ah, that's a really important factor. So
She
if you
looks
were to
at
say,
it like it's a pet.
right, like it's a pet, almost like the two, right, are bound kind of inextricably in one. What does that tell you before you learn anything about Lilith? You know nothing, right? You know nothing about Lilith just yet. What does this tell you? Yes, Johnny has something. Yes.
Flirting with evil.
Flirting with evil. What can you tell me, maybe something about Lilith, just by this picture alone?
She's young. She's carefree. She has, her hair is wild.
It's love it. Wild, carefree, all absolutely. What else?
And
What else
red.
can you say about her character?
Red.
Her hair is red too.
Her hair
Yes.
is red.
Can you hear me?
absolutely.
I don't seem to be able to get in.
Red.
Hi, Mimi. Yes, we can hear you.
There's nothing to me to sign in.
It's on. Are you having trouble signing
Where's she
in?
at?
I'm having deep trouble signing in.
Can you hear
She's
me
in.
okay?
I got the link, but there's no password by my link.
She's in.
This is Mimi Goldschmidt. I can't seem to get in.
Okay.
You are in. You're in because we can all hear you.
You can hear me. Okay. Well, you
You're
will
in, I
probably
promise.
not be able to see me.
I just can't see you,
ca-
but we can hear you.
her
As long as you
camera's
can
not
hear
on.
and see us. Okie doke. Alrighty. So Lilith, all of those, very, very true. On to the next one. Ready?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Here is Lilith. What kind of pose is she in here? What can we say? What do we know about Lilith here?
Well, why is she not dressed and he is?
Ah, right? Exactly. It says a lot. In fact, Kathleen, your point earlier about this young carefreeness is going to be a really important point of Lilith, right? Lilith is exposed, whereas opposed to this man is clothed, right? We see this harsh juxtaposition of a clothed man and an exposed naked woman. Yes. What else? Anything else?
The young witch at the festival of the wizards. And
Yes, Johnny.
She looks like she's seducing this guy.
Exactly. Lilith is seductive. Okay, are we really,
Yes.
are we ready to find out a little bit about Lilith? Yes, I'm gonna take that as a yes. Let's do this. Okay, so our first text, again, this isn't in any kind of never necessarily a structural order like you'd find. We're not going to kind of start in Genesis and move our way timewards. However, this is structured in a way to kind of reveal a little bit about the personality of Lilith. And the reason why this is important to us is because Lilith is the problem. And I'll explain a little bit that in just a second. And I'm going to do the reading if that's okay. I'm just a quick read. And I want you guys to be able to kind of process the information in two ways. So normally I would call on readers, but tonight I'm just going to read for you, save you a little bit of the trouble. So our Isaiah passage reads, wild cats shall meet hyenas, goat demons shall greet each other. There too, the Lilith shall repose and find herself in a resting place. Ah, okay. What do we have here? What do you think about these two words? Where does Lilith hang out? Where do we find Lilith? Anyone have any idea?
In the forest.
The forest. With who?
With hyenas and goat demons
Coyotes and goat demons.
and wildcats.
And wildcats.
Yeah.
So if you were to say this cluster of things that, right, are around each other, how would you then use Lilith? Lilith's kind of cast in this way that she's among what? A goat demon. This isn't a goat angel, right? It's a goat demon. Demons are good or demons are bad?
Bad.
Bad. Good. Right. So Lilith,
Bad.
good, bad.
Yeah.
Bad.
Bad.
Bad. Okay. Yes. Yes. Sonny's like, yes, bad. Exactly. Right. Which is to say, all we're doing is we're trying to find and we're trying to create for us an image of Lilith, right? What is Lilith? Well, the first thing that we know is Lilith is equated or used in the same paragraph or used in the same verbiage as talking about something that's demonic, especially a goat demon or something that's wild. Remember, we talked about that a little bit today with the hair being wild, right? Lilith being kind of a wild, right? Wild creature. And this is really important because, question, when we get into next week, demons, do you imagine that demons are safe or are demons wild?
Demons are wild.
Right? Question, if you were to think about safety, does safety happen in the wilderness or does safety happen kind of in more reposed places?
Not will.
Not in the wilderness, right? Wild, extreme, right? All of those things present to us, right, a way that we can be harmed. We don't like to be harmed. We're not huge fans of it, which is hence Lilith. Okay. Gonna keep going. So here's where Lilith came from. Ready? Okay. The angels who are in charge of healing, right? And we're going to list a few of these angels: Sanoi, Sansinsoi, Semengeloff, right? Lovely names. While God created Adam, who was alone, he said, "It is not good for man to be alone." He also created a woman from the earth as he had created Adam himself, and he called her Lilith. Adam and Lilith immediately began to fight. She said, "I will not lie below." And he said, "I will not lie beneath you, but only on top. For you are fit only to be in the bottom position, while I am to be the superior one." Lilith responded, "We are equal to each other, inasmuch as we both were created from the earth." But they would not listen to each other. When Lilith saw this, she pronounced the ineffable name and flew away in the air. Adam stood in prayer before his creator. "Sovereign of the universe," he said, "the woman you gave me has run away." At once, the Holy One, blessed be he, sent these three angels to bring her back. She has gone, she has left. All important features. We're going to talk about this in just a second. Said the Holy One to Adam, "If she agrees to come back, what is made is good. If not, she must permit 100 of her children to die every day." The angels left God and pursued Lilith, whom they overtook in the midst of the sea. Sound familiar? Kind of like Exodus. In the mighty sea, in the mighty waters, wherein the Egyptians were destined to drown, they told her God's word, but she did not wish to return. The angels said, "We shall drown you in the sea." "Leave me," she said. "I was created only to cause sickness to infants. If the infant is male, I have dominion over him for 8 days after his birth, and if female, for 20 days. When the angels heard Lilith's words, they insisted she go back. But she swore to them by the name of the living and eternal God, "Whenever I see you or your names or forms in an amulet, I will have no power over that infant." She also agreed to have 100 of her children die every day. Accordingly, every day 100 demons perish. And for the same reason, we write the angels' names on the amulets of young children. When Lilith sees their names, she remembers her oath, and the child recovers. Okay, this was a lot. We unpacked a lot. What did you know? Here, I can continue sharing my screen so you can see me. What did anyone note about this story? What do we know about Lilith? Who does she attack?
Attack?
Children, babies.
Children.
Little babies.
Do that.
Lilith attacks little baby children. Question. Why little baby children? This is an important question to ask ourselves. Why babies? Why Lilith? Yes,
Well,
Warren.
they're the most vulnerable.
They're the most vulnerable.
They're the
And
most
what do we
vulnerable.
know about Lilith?
She's
She
young.
refused to be on the bottom. She wanted to be on top. She saw her and Adam as equals. What are the rabbis? How do the rabbis typically feel about independent wild women? Good or not good? I know that's kind of going to be like our litmus test for the day. It's going to be like, this is good or this is bad. And that's Jewish mysticism, really. I don't want to break it down into a binary, but really when it comes down to this stuff, it's like, these are good things. These aren't good things. These are bad things. In fact, these aren't just bad things, they're very bad things. Lilith, good or bad? Bad. How do we contract the bad? We need something good, which is an amulet. And we will get there, I promise. That's in the latter half. But first, we want to talk a little bit about the problem that is Lilith. Because, Warren, let me ask you a question.
And then my
You noted quite perfectly that children are vulnerable, right?
Right.
Who gets sick? Who gets sick typically? Children,
Children.
the
Yeah.
young, right?
Or old.
Or old. But in this case, just in this one, why do we assign Lilith? The question then becomes, if all sorts of people get sick, why is Lilith assigned the sickness of infants? Right? There's all sorts of things that can happen. But what is the corollary? What is the connection between those two?
well,
Yes.
if you're talking about superstition, they needed to find a reason that children died, and back then more children died before they were 8 days, and the girls evidently 20 days. And so they had to blame somebody. And so naturally, in a patriarchal society, who are they going to blame? They have to invent a woman to blame, and they can't invent a woman who's like rubies. They have to invent a she-wolf kind of.
A she, exactly. Demon, right? Why do good things happen? Why do bad things happen to good children? There's nothing pure on this planet than a baby. It's pureness. The rabbis say it. We all think it. There's nothing evil inherently about the baby, which means that Lilith takes on this category of something monumentous. And you're absolutely right? We need a reason. We have to understand what it is that we're up against. Okay, moving on. Okay, so next point. Again, we're not going to go through all of these slides because there's a lot to cover. So again, everything will be sent out, which is more than enough reading for everyone. But we're going to get into this, which is Aviva Cantor Zukoff asked, the Lilith question. This is important. Jewish tradition has been very flexible in what it seeks to emphasize in role models. King David is a much beloved character in Jewish lore, but tradition could have easily have emphasized his immoral personal behavior and cavalier political maneuverings instead of his love of God and the Jewish people. Had this been done, David could have been a negative role model of adulterer and Machiavellian politician. Jewish tradition, however, chose to forget and forgive those reprehensible aspects of his character because it did not regard them as intrinsic to his soul. It is both necessary and within our tradition to use the same approach to Lilith, bearing in mind the aspect of human need as a factor in focusing on specific aspects of a historical or mythological character. What is intrinsic to Lilith, what is the most central aspect of her character, is her struggle for independence, her courage in taking risks, her commitment to the equality of women and men based on their creation as equals by God. It is this Lilith who is faithful to her innermost self, her nature, and her principles. What all this is saying is that independence is scary. However, the most important part about this entire paragraph is who chose to make Lilith the bad guy
Exactly.
or bad woman. Who made this? It was a decision, right? Which is the most important about this. Jewish tradition chose to forget.
All the answers.
Yes, Miriam and Bobby. Yes, Miriam Friedman.
Well, because men were writing the story, they got to choose. Women were illiterate even. They weren't in Yiddish culture, at least. They weren't even allowed to know how to read, much less write. So they were kept as secondary citizens without the power of voice, which, of course, jumping ahead to the 70s and 80s, that changed a lot. There were feminist women writing new midrash. But anyway, that's later.
No. This is important. And it's super important because what we understand, bad things happen. Who we choose to identify for the reason bad things happen is a choice that's typically made by us. You think about infants and infant death, it's something that feels something unexplainable. The rabbis have a hard time grappling with this because they can't ascribe that the baby did anything wrong, which is frustrating. Because if the rabbis can't describe why something bad happened to you, they don't understand it, which means we need a problem.
The modern rabbi.
The problem is Lilith. And Lilith becomes a choice that gets made by the rabbis, and a choice that becomes bigger than life. We're going to move on. Any questions so far? These are really important things, that we get to choose who the bad guys are. That's an important part about this. Because we don't have a story necessarily in the Bible about things happening where Lilith attacks. All we have is that Lilith is bad, and we continue that story and that propaganda. Yes, Linda.
Well, what I mentioned about the long hair to make the boy a girl, in your previous slide, it says the girl babies go for the 21 days, the male less. So is that the same idea, that you make the boy look like a girl because they give him more?
No. So that has to do with one thing. What happens after 8 days? What happens that would secure a little Jewish baby child into some kind of protective captivity that would make it safe from harm? Circumcision. Everyone did this. I feel like this is now like the universe. Everyone did like the same exact. It's really funny. If we were all playing Pictionary, everyone wins. I promise. Or what is it? Charades. Yes. So that's the reason for, right, the small infant. Kathleen. You're on mute.
You said that we get to choose who the bad guy is. Actually, I don't think we get to choose. I think the rabbis chose.
I say like we, because I mean the Jewish people. In a sense, again, even today, let me be very clear. Even today, I've created and juxtaposed this narrative that Lilith is bad and amulets are good. I've created that for us, and that's the narrative we're following. And right, it's kind of existential because that is, in a sense, what the rabbis have done. They've propped up, right, something that needs to be bad and something that needs to be good. This is Jewish magic and superstition. Superstition isn't necessarily real. It's just something we feel. And they know that, by the way. They're well aware of that. They can't make sense of it. That's what superstition is really about. It's trying to ascribe a feeling or a name to something that we cannot make sense of. It boils down to the most intrinsic feelings that we have about humanity, about goodness, and about evil and bad things that happen. Okay. So here we find all sorts of good things that you all pointed out about Lilith. The Gemara analyzes the above statement with regard to Eve's 10 curses. Are they in fact 10? They are only 7. Rav Dimi came from Eretz Israel to Babylonia. He said that the other curses are: a woman is wrapped like a mourner, i.e. she must cover her head, it's typical, and she is ostracized from all people and incarcerated within a prison, as she typically spends all of her time in the house. Okay, we're just like painting a portrait here. The Gemara asks, what is the meaning of ostracized from all people? If you say this is because it is forbidden for her to seclude herself with a man, it is also forbidden for a man to seclude himself with a woman, right? No one's allowed to necessarily be alone. Rather, it means that it is forbidden for her to marry 2 men, whereas a man can marry 2 women. Again, when Lilith ran away, did Lilith get another shot at marriage?
No.
Did Adam? Even though he was the one that caused
Yes.
it. Adam gets another shot.
Yes.
He gets to marry 2 women. Lilith gets 1, which turned into 0. Does this all make sense? Are you kind of following the gears here? Okay, good. It was taught in the Baraita that the 3 additional curses are: she grows her hair long like Lilith, a demon. She sits and urinates like an animal, and she serves as a pillow for her husband during relations. Does this all, wait. I know it's like silly and funny, but does it all make sense? Do you see that in the narrative? Can you see it? You're like checking off. You're like, okay, long hair, got it. We saw that in the picture. Oh, wild coyotes, like an animal. Okay, pillow, right? She sits there, right? She's passive in that sense. However, she's not just passive, because women can't necessarily be passive. They're also very aggressive, right? That's a possibly, right? All of these things. And she's isolated. Okay. Have we painted a really good picture of something that feels very scary? Got it. Good. Right? Does any of these things stand out? If you're a young man by the age of, maybe 8 or 9, 10, maybe you're a young woman perhaps, would this scare you? Would describing, right, the opposite gender in this way, would it scare you? Would it bring you nightmares? Yeah, it would, right? That's the entire intended purpose of this, right? We're creating nightmare fuel. Why are we creating nightmare fuel? Because nightmare fuel already exists in the day-to-day existence of human beings. We just need a name. It helps us identify and feel better that we can ascribe a name to the horrific events, things that happen. Just the regular things that happen. We need nightmare fuel because sometimes our lives can be nightmarish. That is magic, and that is mysticism. That is superstition. I know it's not exactly like the Joker-esque comedic type that you were hoping for. I'm sorry. But like that's kind of what this is. It's trying to make sense. I know you guys weren't looking for like an existential crisis today, but like this is kind of what this all is wrapped up in. It does get weird, trust me. We do get into all sorts of other things, but the first issue is why is there a need for magic and superstition to begin with? And it's simply just because bad things happen. So I just want to be clear about the why. Because if you can understand that, if you understand the why, the rest of it will all make sense. You'll nod your head. You're like, bad, Rabbi. We don't like that. Amulets, good. Random superstitious things, good. We like that. The rest will all make sense. Okay. More about Lilith, because we love Lilith. Rabbi Yehuda says that Shmuel says, in the case of a woman who discharges a fetus that has the form of a Lilith, a female demon with wings and a human face, its mother is impure with the impurity of a woman after childbirth. As it is a variable offspring, only it has wings. Right? What baby doesn't have wings? This is also taught in the Baraita. Rabbi Yossi said an incident occurred in Simoni involving a certain woman who discharged a fetus that had the form of a Lilith. And the incident was brought before the sages, and they said that is invariable offspring, only it has wings. What do we know about Lilith so far?
She has wings.
She has wings. Why are wings important? Think
Angels.
allegory.
Angels.
Think, what's up?
She can get away. She can get out of
Freedom.
prison.
Freedom.
Mhm.
Wings are freedom. In fact, we use the same verbiage in Exodus, right? Under, right, God's wing. We talk about that a lot. And you all said, Lilith, right? Is Lilith imprisoned or Lilith is moving? She's on the prowl. Bad things don't stay in prison. They move. They move because they're dangerous. They're free to move. They're free to roam. Wings are representative here of autonomy. Lilith has autonomy. Why do we know that? From the story. What happens? She says the ineffable name, and what does she do? Anyone
Flies away.
remember?
Flies away.
Flies away.
Flies
Yeah.
away.
Right.
Again, which came first, the chicken or the egg? It's a good question. But all we know is that bad things move. Bad things don't stay in one place. Bad things can drift, right? Especially also, again, what are we talking about here? Lilith is juxtaposed right next to what item? She's always associated, sorry, not juxtaposed. She's always associated with what?
Children.
Not children. Always children. Always children. Okay. Rabbi Papa said that we hold that a lion does not pounce upon two people. The
Can
Gemara
you hear
challenges.
me?
Yes,
I would
Mimi,
like
we
to
can-
make a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Mimi, but my face never shows up there. But I think what is interesting to me about this whole business is that the demon is depicted as a woman, and they're doing everything that they can do to humiliate women and to make them second-class citizens by making them cover their head. They can't see people, and they're accusing them of having children that are demons. And
Yes.
I am against that, and I think it is the male takeover of Judaism and the Jewish religion that has done this.
However, yes, Mimi is 1000% correct. I promise there's a good ending to Lilith. I do promise that Lilith doesn't go unseen or unheard by Jewish women. I promise, because what we noted before is that if men can create a narrative, and if humans can create a narrative, it means what? Well, the story can be changed, which it does. I just want to take that into consideration, that what we're reading is a narrative. What you're seeing is a narrative. However, what we know about Jewish tradition is that narratives change, just like superstitions change. What you are superstitious about 40 years ago isn't necessarily what you're superstitious about today. Things change. That's kind of also what we're learning here. Okay, I want to, oh, the Gemara answers that statement. Must be in accordance. Rabbi Bar Abba said, an animal does not overpower a person until he appears to it as an animal. We just talked about appearance is really important. As it is stated, but a man does not abide in honor. He is like the beasts that perish. However, animals do not attack people who are human in their spiritual character. In a similar vein, Rabbi Hanina said, it is prohibited to sleep alone in a house, and anyone who sleeps alone in a house will be seized by the evil spirit Lilith. Question. Lilith
Watch out,
is
guys.
juxtaposed next to what? What do you see? Not only children, but what are the things that Lilith gets associated with? If I were to make a list, demons, yes. But what is the other one?
Men.
Men. What else?
Always being alone.
Being alone. What else? All good. Yep, keep going. This is important.
Animals.
Animals. Animals. Why animals? We've heard this a few times.
Because they're wild and untamed.
Wild, untamed.
Like Lilith.
And it should be noted, not all animals run in packs. Animals, right? Again, we don't know, like we kind of like, they like knew a little bit about animals, but to them, animals are independent and ferocious. They don't care what they do. They don't care who they hurt. They just hunt, right? All of these things are really, really important to us. Why are they important to us? Because they paint a vivid picture of a thing that we don't like. That's important to us. Does everyone kind of see, like, again, I'm creating the narrative, and at the same time, I'm kind of like giving you, I'm taking Lilith, and we're just seeing where Lilith appears, and all we're doing is trying to figure out what she is associated with. Does everyone have a clear kind of idea of Lilith? We're going to learn a little bit. Yes, thumbs up. Okay, here's where it gets interesting, and it's going to take a turn, because we have the Coming of Lilith by Judith Plasco. We're going to read a different story about Lilith, one that I think you actually may like more. Anyone have any other comments before we read this? Okay. Thank you for coming along my journey with me. I know this is a lot of information. I just want to make sure like you guys are with me for the journey. Yes, Miriam had a question?
Oh, I was just going to say that Judith Plaskoff was one of the first people. She was standing again at Sinai, and she was one of the first to transform the old midrash and make them and reinterpret from a feminist perspective, and really save Lilith's reputation in a way. And also in the former slide, somebody came over our house, so I didn't get to say it, but when you talk about men lying, man does not abide in honor, he's like the beast. So they're also bringing in the fact that men are vulnerable to the seduction of a Lilith, that she can come and get him if he's alone.
Absolutely.
In other words, he has a kind of a spirit of being available for seduction to prevent. So that's my interpretation.
1,000%. I think what the rabbis are doing, and if you'll excuse my interpretation, but I think what they're saying almost is that yes, they're available. However, like a lion, like a bear attack, it's unprovoked. I think that's also what they're trying to get at. That like they didn't do anything wrong. They were just alone in the forest, and all of a sudden a big bear came out of nowhere and just attacks you. Right? And that's kind of, does that all kind of make sense? Like that's also, we think of an animal attack.
That's what it says.
Yeah.
Right? We think of an animal attack. What they don't show you is the 2-minute clip of the guy sticking his finger in the nose of an alligator. Suddenly the alligator attacks and it's like, oh, okay. Right? which is to say, right,
Right.
who has blame? Not men here. Men don't really have blame
Right.
here, right? Which is kind of this idea that this animal attacks. Again, animals also, like, they're not necessarily differentiating. There's a whole lot to be wrapped up in this, but I think you'll like this one, The Coming of Lilith. This is a long one. It's not super long. But it's a little bit longer than the first one. Notice how our narrative changes. In the beginning, the Lord God formed Adam from Lilith, from the dust of the ground, and breathed into their nostrils the breath of life. Created from the same source, both having been formed from the ground, they were equal in all ways. Adam, being a man, didn't like this situation. He looked for ways to change it. He said, "I'll have my figs now, Lilith," ordering her to wait on him. He tried to leave her the daily tasks of life in the garden. But Lilith wasn't one to take on nonsense. She picked herself up, uttered God's holy name, and flew away. "Well now, Lord," complained Adam, "that uppity woman you sent me has gone and deserted me." The Lord, inclined to be sympathetic, sent his messengers after Lilith, telling her to shape up and return to Adam or face dire punishment. Sounds like a 1930s film. She, however, preferring anything to living with Adam, decided to stay where she was. And so God, after more careful consideration this time, caused a deep sleep to fall on Adam, and out of oxen, his ribs, created for him a second companion, Eve. For a time, Eve and Adam had a good thing going. Adam was happy now, and Eve, though she occasionally sensed her capacities within herself that remained undeveloped, was basically satisfied with the role of Adam's wife and helper. The only thing that really disturbed her was excluding closeness of the relationship between Adam and God. Adam and God just seemed to have more in common, both being men, and Adam came to identify with God more and more. After a while, that made God a bit uncomfortable too, and he started going over in his mind whether he may not have made a mistake letting Adam talk him into banishing Lilith and creating Eve, seeing the power that gave Adam. Meanwhile, Lilith, all alone, attempted from time to time to rejoin the human community in the garden. After her first fruitless attempt to breach its walls, Adam worked hard to build them even stronger. I want you to note this. Adam builds walls. Lilith is trying to breach walls. Allegory.
What happened to her
Build them even
wings?
stronger. Even getting Eve to help him, other women to build their walls. He told her fearsome stories of the demon Lilith, who threatens women in childbirth and steals children from their cradles in the middle of the night. Oh no! The second time Lilith came, she stormed the garden's main gate, and a great battle ensued between her and Adam, in which she was finally defeated. This time, however, before Lilith got away, Eve got a glimpse of her and saw she was a woman like herself. After this encounter, seeds of curiosity and doubt began to grow in Eve's mind. Was Lilith indeed just another woman? Adam had said she was a demon, another woman. The very idea attracted Eve. She had never seen another creature like herself before. And how beautiful and strong Lilith looked. How bravely she had fought. Slowly, Eve began to think about the limits of her own life within the garden. One day, after many months of strange and disturbing thoughts, Eve, wandering around the edge of the garden, noticed a young apple tree she and Adam had planted and saw that one of its branches stretched over the garden wall. Oh, look at that, a branch stretching over the garden wall. I want you to think about the image of that. Spontaneously, she tried to climb it and, struggling to the top, swung herself over to the wall. She did not wander long on the other side before she met the one she had come to find, for Lilith was waiting. At first sight of her, Eve remembered the tales of Adam and was frightened, but Lilith understood and greeted her kindly. "Who are you?" they asked each other. "What is your story?" And they sat and spoke together of the past and then of the future, They talked for many hours, not once, but many times. They taught each other many things and told each other stories and laughed together and cried and over, so the bond of sisterhood grew between them. Meanwhile, back in the garden, Adam was puzzled by Eve's comings and goings and disturbed by what he sensed to be her new attitude toward him. He talked to God about it, and God, having his own problems with Adam and a somewhat broader perspective, was able to help out a little, but he was confused too. Something had failed to go according to plan. And as in the days of Abraham, he needed counsel from his children. I am who I am, thought God, but I must become who I will become. And God and Adam were expectant and afraid the day Eve and Lilith returned to the garden, bursting with possibilities, ready to rebuild it together. Okay, this is a long story. What were your thoughts? Do you need to see the slide, or everyone get all of that? Yes, Linda.
Was jealous of the relationship.
Jealous of the relationship, right? I want you to see this, like, here's a
Got it.
wall, right? Eve goes over the wall towards this unknown, this craziness, these nightmares that she's been told about, this Lilith, this demon. What happens when you make nice with your demons? They're not nightmares anymore, right? In some sense, Judith Plasco was deconstructing the narrative of Lilith. She tore down the wall of the garden that was made for Eve. Does everyone see that? What we did here, we allegorically tore down the wall.
Goldschmidt here, I would like to comment.
Yes, Mimi.
The interesting thing to me here, that men are writing this, and a woman who defies staying in the garden and goes out with curiosity on her own and meets a demon must also be demonized when she comes back.
Yes.
And
Good.
which to me is early on making women demonized. And as you continue with the story of the Garden of Eden, you know exactly what she did and so forth. But I think that making her demonized is the way men look at women who have any kind of curiosity at all, and who will step outside of the regular bounds to do things.
Well, she becomes demonized for a very good reason. Because nightmares can only be nightmares if they're the things of the unknown. If they are known, and if we become friends, if they're equated, right? If we have relations with them, then they no longer serve its purpose. And also it's the same very much in the feminist way, right? That women, right, on their own in the rabbinic field, struggled very, very hard. Judith Plasco is also kind of reiterating her own story into this, that Judith, right, individual women, however, you start to build relationships with one another, and suddenly, right, what became a demonized, right, something that became other was then something that became friendly. And absolutely, the scary thought of women gathering together in the way of excluding men made the rabbis very, very uncomfortable. That's just what it is. I mean, again, this isn't a class on feminism, I promise, but it's just to simply begin and to explain, right, how the rabbis formulate what things are bad, how they perceive good and bad, how they perceive things that come upon them that they don't like. That's all. I promise I'm not, this isn't my agenda here. As the slides show, like this isn't even my narrative. It's a narrative set before me. I want to be very clear that this isn't Rabbi Sataloff's. I didn't make this. I didn't write any of this. I'm just simply laying out the cards so you can see how it's constructed and the way it ebbs and flows. Yes, Kathleen.
What I really loved, enjoyed, just in that narrative of Judith Plasco is how she went over the wall and then she began to talk to Lilith, and then there was this, I don't even want to say friendship. I think it was more of learning and talking together. I think that is very almost sweet and special. That it's friendship, it's female friendship, and that it was prohibited perhaps makes it even sweeter in a way.
Absolutely. Yes, Warren.
Would this also be a way of looking at it as breaking down the superstitions to, that they really don't exist?
Say more about that. Yes, that's also kind of like where absolutely you're right on track. Say more.
This is Mimi. I would like to make a comment when you call on me.
Yes, Mimi. First Warren, and then Mimi.
Well, I was thinking that, that when you reach out to people that you don't trust, the same as, and get to know them better, the same thing with your superstitions. If you're afraid of your superstitions, if you confront them and analyze them and work them through, they become less fearful.
Yes. Welcome to the postmodern, right? Right? It's exactly where you're going. I think we're kind of, yes, thank you. Yes. That's exactly it. You guys are like nodding your heads, like you get it. That's kind of where we are today. Yes, Mimi.
Mimi, I would like to say one or two things here. The first one is we are 95% genetically similar to a chimpanzee. Number two, the first woman was born that's about 2 million years old. And I just wonder what the rabbis would do with this when they picked up dirt and made Adam and Eve, because humans were made much, much earlier than this lovely story of the Garden of Eden and the first birth of someone. So when I look at this story, it is the story, and it is the attempt of people to try to explain as much as they knew. But to me, it fails quite a bit.
It fails. It will always fail. It will always fail. And there's a good, and here, right, that's kind of what we're doing. That's the ebb and flow of magic and superstition, is that we believe that the more we understand, the less there is room for magic and superstition. There's a reason actually why, right, these superstitions that we have aren't as prevalent, because at this point in time, we believe that we know so much. However, I will always say, and I'll say it now, and I'll say it 1,000 years from now, there will always be a room. There'll always be a gap. That gap is between what we know, what we think we know, and what we have no idea of. That's the gap. That's where superstition and magic comes in. It sits in that place. What we know, but there's a lot of what we don't know.
I think superstition is supposed to help us guard ourselves against superstition and help guard ourselves against something that seems to me very uncomfortable.
Yes.
And I think interesting also to me was the story you had a couple chapters back about no one living alone.
Yes.
And one thing interesting to me, my superstitious grandmother said that God collects your souls when you fall asleep and gives it back to you when you wake up. And that to me is a way that people are protected when they sleep, because Lilith isn't there to affect their souls. God has taken them back.
Absolutely. Yes, the nighttime. It's a good point. Yes, when do bad things happen? During the night, during the day? During the night. Why?
Dreams.
Because we can't see.
Can't see.
Right.
We can't see. The unknown. If you don't know, if you can't see, you have you have lack of perception, you have lack of awareness, you have lack of visibility. You don't know what is happening. Darkness, bad. Light, good. Right? In this formula. Darkness, right? Bad things happen in the dark. Demons like the dark. Bad things happen in the dark. I don't know one single horror movie where the whole thing happens like during daylight. Like, no, they always happen at night. Why at night? That's when bad things happen. It's when bad things happen. There's a lot to be wrapped up in this. Yes, Miriam, I saw your hand.
We're not in control at night. We're asleep, and so we're more vulnerable. And
Absolutely.
like we can't see back. I mean, we didn't always have electricity, so we couldn't see easily.
Absolutely. Question: If you're alone in the woods at night, why is it bad to be alone? This idea that you're alone. Well, because no one is watching guard for you. Who typically watches guard for you? God. God is watching. Right? That's this whole idea. That's actually where we're going with all of this. Is that right? Like, we want something to be watching out for us. We need that. We know that. We like that comfort. We like it when we know, right, that our mom is watching and sitting, right? Little children, by the way, right? They like a nightlight and they want you to sit in their room when they fall asleep. Why? Because they feel comforted by knowing that they're being watched. It's a grown human behavior that we have the same thing to. We're the exact same way. We're no different as we get older. Something that's just continuous. Yes, Kathleen. You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute.
I'm just beginning to think that, I'm just being a critic. I'm like going, hey, wait a minute. I like being alone in the dark. I like the dark. I like, it's like, I was like getting the feeling like, oh yes, I agree. Yes. Oh, bad little, bad this. And then, but I'm like, hey, so I'm just throwing that out there in a way, because it just to be like, I know why Lilith is bad, and I know why we have to have a bad icon or something so that to make us feel like we're in control or something. But I'm trying to like, hey, but isn't there a place for magic?
There is.
Yeah.
But really quickly, while it's in my head,
Yeah.
Lilith, Kathleen, will no longer be our scapegoat. Do you get it? Our scapegoat.
Yeah.
Remember the goat demons?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Lilith, that's what this picture is, by the way.
Yeah.
Lilith is like, no. You can't have, right? At a certain point when Lilith magazine came out, right? We had this premiere issue. They said, no. You can't have Lilith anymore. You're not having her. Because what do we see? Tell me about this Lilith. Is she naked? Johnny.
Penicillin chicken soup, Jewish chickens.
Yes!
She cooks and
Penicillin. No, Jewish penicillin. It's literally, that is exactly, you read that exactly right. What else? What do we see about Lilith?
She's liberated. She has the Israeli flag. She has the icon. She's a savior, I guess. She's Miss Liberty there.
Absolutely.
She has a woman on her bag. She's got clothes on.
Oh yeah, she has clothes on. God forbid she's clothed. Unlike an animal, which
symbol of a woman.
On her
Symbol
back.
of a woman. Absolutely. What about her hair, by the way? Tell me about her hair. What is she wearing?
Oh, a hat.
A hat. Her hair is kempt.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But she is barefooted.
She is barefooted, but she's barefooted, but barefoot is also, in a sense, a symbol of freedom as well. She's also
Right.
balanced, by the way. I want you to see that she kind of holds, she has this posture that's like in movement, but balanced. She's catering, right? She has Jewish penicillin and she has an Israeli flag. She has this like Jewish womanhood and yet a sense of pride and a sense of like bravery,
And does she
right?
have some
Caring.
salads?
I'm sorry.
Like right below the chicken soup, she's holding the talents.
Yes, and she has a tallis on her, a symbol of
Oh,
religiosity. Absolutely. Yes, Johnny.
Is that Shabbat candles? What in the hat?
where
Is
you-
that 2 candles?
There are two
Where?
candles.
Oh,
Yes.
yes,
In the
those
hat.
are 2 candles. I've never
Shabbat.
noticed that before. Yes, those are 2 Shabbat candles. Great look.
Call on me eventually.
Mimi, calling on you eventually.
Oh, I think what is interesting, she looks like she is a vixen. She's got her leg completely bared, which Orthodox women would abhor to show that much of their leg in public. And I think that they're picturing her sort of as a whore. And I'm sure that this is a man that has drawn this picture.
Quite
Showing
the
a
contrary.
woman- Actually,
So-
it shows 2 or 3 different sides of women. One of them in the kitchen, one of them in the bed, and that's interesting to me that they're picturing the whole woman.
Mimi,
here.
this comes from Lilith magazine, which is a magazine that is completely dedicated to Jewish women. So this is in fact the opposite depiction of what we saw earlier. I don't want to catch you off, but I just want to make sure and just make known that this is a depiction by women for women, which is a really important kind
Right.
of different segment that we're going on here now. Can I keep moving?
Yes.
Okay, so this is where we're going to get to, and then I promise we're kind of we're towards amulets, and there is a reason why. But first, Susan Weidman Schneider, founder of Lilith magazine, she had this to say. It's this really beautiful article. Again, I'll send out the link. These are all, you can click on everything. It'll take you to the original source. The cover of the first issue featured our artist version, the Jewish Superwoman, who mangled to amalgamate almost all possible roles. Doctor, Johnny, server of chicken soup, scholar, tightrope walker, balanced, challah baker,
That's a holler on
Scipia's
her hat.
mother, Zionist stalwart. We decided that the mix would set the pattern for what we wanted to include in the issues that followed, challenging how Jewish law shapes women's lives, touching on the ways popular culture articulates images of Jewish women, truth-telling about individual women's lives, inflected by the idea that if only we spoke out louder our deepest realities, all wrongs would be righted. My vision is now more complex, glee replaced by fascination. I'm tempted to say in the passive mood that Lilith's content has become more nuanced, as if such a change happens by magic. Truth is, I see the world of Jewish women and my own life in more shades and colors than I did then. The unquestionably good and the uncomfortably ambiguous, the inherited past and the uncertain collective shaped future, the gatekeepers and the change agents, all part of the background for the women on the tightrope. She's more grounded now, no tightrope. She's making choices, not trying to live out those expectations of others, and there's both background and foreground to her portrait. Okay. It's really, yes, Linda said beautiful. I'm like trying to read everyone's lips and connect. Yes, right. It's really awesome, because what they did, again, magic and mysticism is all about narrative. That's what I want you all to take away. It's all about narrative, right? It's why I asked you at the beginning, I asked, what were you superstitious about? And you all told me things about someone else that told you to be superstitious about. That's what superstition is. It's only promulgated by others. That's someone told you, poo, poo, poo. Someone did that. You saw that once and you thought, oh, that's a thing, right? and therefore we adopted it. That's what I want everyone to take away, that a lot of this in Jewish tradition, right? These things get exacerbated only when we adopt them. Magic and superstition, right? Only when I adopt that superstition does it become superstitious for me. Did everyone hear what I just said? Okay.
Yes.
Only when I adopt it, then it becomes a reality. That's important. So what they did was they took Lilith, they made her nightmare, but then they took it away. They could have said, well, we're not making Lilith a superstitious thing, a figment anymore, a figment of our imagination, which is a really important part, which is narrative is important as we go through and we're listening to this. Narrative is an important part. What we choose and how we choose to shape the story is important. What we choose to listen to, remember to, is important. Okay, we're not going to get into this. However, the one thing I want you to take away here is just another story. That the only way, and you saw this in the beginning, the only way to ward off evil is to attach an amulet bearing the names of her 3 angel captors to the children. Hence amulets. And we're not going to spend too long in here because I feel like amulets kind of speak for themselves in a lot of ways. Amulets. Here we have our solution, right? And he blesses, and this is, again, we're going to spend just a little bit of time. We'll get into it next class. I'm sorry we only have 2 classes on this, but that's okay. You're welcome to come visit me and I'll talk your ear off. Okay. And he blessed Joseph, saying, the God in whose ways my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd from birth and to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all harm, bless the lads. In them may my name be recalled. This is God talking. In the names of angels, my name may be recalled. We get this from Genesis. Angels become messengers, not only from God to humans, but the other way around, but from humans to God. We get this from Genesis. It comes from Genesis, I promise. This isn't the rabbis, this isn't 15th century, this is from Genesis. The angel redeems harm. Again, we see the same kind of, we see harm, we see angels, we see the name of God. These are all important things. Harm, angels, the name of God. All things that have to do with amulets. Amulets guard against what? Harm. Well, what do you think you need in an amulet? The names of what?
Blessing.
Maybe
Angels.
the name of God or the names of
Prophet.
angels.
The angels.
Right?
Angels.
It's right there. I promise this class is not meant to like be I promise I'm not taking you on a maze here. We're just kind of pointing out like it's right there in the text. That's where the rabbis get it. The name of God, the name of angels, and then being called out is important to preventing harm.
And then make my name be recalled.
Yes, I see Warren has a question.
Would the 3 names be the patriarchs?
No, the 3 names are those 3 angels whose names we are actually about to get to. However, the names of the patriarchs are important because it's through Abraham that we are blessed, which is why our prayers are important. Our prayers in some ways in Judaism become like spoken amulets.
A question.
Yes, an answer.
I think that an amulet makes a person feel comfortable if they believe they're wearing something that is attached to God and that they're wearing it all the time. Most religions have amulets. I have very Christian friends who wear crosses and feel that this protects them somehow. And so I think that this is psychological, that people are wearing amulets, and I think it's part of superstition. And it is not forbidden for Jews to wear amulets. I have friends who wear hands and so on, or wear Jewish Magen Davids and so forth. And a lot of people may feel more comfortable and more protected with an amulet on. But I really think that it is not important for me, because I have always felt I have been blessed, and that I don't have to wear something that indicates to other people that I have been blessed.
Sure. I only have one. I'm going to refute something that you said, Mimi, that actually Jews were permitted to wear amulets, and we're permitted to have them.
I said they were permitted.
They were, yes, they are allowed.
Yes.
Amulets are allowed. In fact, they take up a big piece. So let me just move on if I could. That way we can get to the end for questions. I won't move you through this whole thing, but just note primitive religions. This is from Joshua Trachtenberg from 1939. It's the best book ever, I promise. Primitive religions make much of these peculiarity potent objects. Their use was very extensive in the Talmudic period and accepted by the rabbinic authorities, impressed itself strongly upon the habits of later times. Jewish amulets were of two sorts: written objects such as herb, fox's tails, stones, etc. They were employed to heal or to protect men, animals, and even inanimate things. There was no legal prohibition against the use of such charms. In fact, the rules which were set up to distinguish proper from improper amulets lent them a definite degree of acceptance. Though some rabbis frowned upon them, others actually suggested their use on certain occasions, and the common folk was very much addicted to this particular form of magic. Amulets were the favored Jewish magical device during the Middle Ages, and the fact that they were predominantly of the written type, prepared especially for specific emergencies, particular individuals, enhanced. Oh, I can't read that because I have something in the way. Something about, I'm sure, their property. Sorry, I don't know why this is there. Okay, so, and again, there were some which consisted exclusively of biblical quotations, with or without the names, that were read into them. Copies of Psalm 126, for instance, with the addition of the anti-Lilithan names, protect children against the hazards of infancy. Psalm 127, hung about a boy's neck from the moment of birth, guards him throughout life. Or the inscription might consist exclusively of angel names, but these were comparatively rare. Most of the written amulets contain the combination of elements which centuries of usage have impressed upon this magical form. Okay, this is just one amulet, 1855. I'm going to kind of scroll through this part so you can hear. Mishnah Shabbat: a man may not go on Shabbat without a spiked sandal, as will be explained in the Gemara, and he may not go out with a single sandal when there is no wound on his foot, and he may neither go out with phylacteries nor with an amulet when it is not from an expert, but rather it was written by someone who has not established reputation as an expert in writing amulets that are effective for those who carry them. So basically, the biggest thing you need to know about amulets is that they need to be amulets approved. What does that mean? The rabbis can't figure it out either. I wish I could tell you who are these like proficient amulet writers or what amulet. It's I mean, it's kind of like, you know, it's like the FDA. It's like
ones that write.
It's like some people approved it and some people didn't. And it became hard. However, the biggest thing you need to know about amulets is that you can only get them from an established amulet dealer. It needs to be from the right guy, right? From the right person. It's silly, but it's true. Actually, that's kind of it. That's the next one. The sages taught what is an effective amulet is an amulet that healed one person once and healed him again and healed him a third time. So what makes for a good amulet? Something that heals people how many times? The magic number 3, right? That is the criterion for an effective amulet, and it applies both to a written amulet and an amulet of roots. Both of it has proven effective in healing a sick person who is dangerously ill, and if it has proven effective in healing a sick person who is not dangerously ill. It is permitted to go out with these types of amulets on Shabbat. An amulet was not only permitted in a case where one has already fallen due to epilepsy and wears an amulet in order to prevent an additional fall. Rather, even if one has never fallen and he wears the amulet so that he will not contract the illness and fall, he is permitted to go out with it on Shabbat. This is a really important part, and this is kind of like also where, I'm going to stop talking. It is universal custom to write the word Shaddai on the other side of the mezuzah. Anyone know what that giant shin is on your mezuzah? It's the name Shaddai. Why Shaddai? Because what you have on your doorpost is really actually an amulet. I'm sorry to break your hearts. But what you have on the doorpost of your house is an amulet. And on this word is written on the outside. The practice is unobjectable. They, however, who write the names of angels, holy names, a biblical text or inscriptions usually on seals, with the mezuzah are among those who have no portion of the world to come. However, the rabbis don't agree with themselves because that's actually not the case at all. For these fools, not only fail to fulfill the commandment, but they treat an important precept that expresses the unity of God, the love of him and his worship, as if it were an amulet to promote their own personal interests. For according to their foolish minds, the mezuzah is something that will secure them for the advantages and the vanities of the world. However, question, if you were to think about what an amulet contains and why it's on your wall or your door, I'd say it functions more like an amulet for a lot of different reasons. The first is, was it written by someone who can only write that certain stuff? The answer is yes. There are kosher and unkosher pieces of scroll, right? Our Torah is considered kosher. Why? Because it was written and secured by the right people. That thing, that mezuzah on your wall, written by the right person? Ding, 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 absolutely. Contains the name of God? Ding, 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 absolutely. Probably not the name of angels, but it does contain the name of someone that's super important. Maybe, I don't know, our ancestors, the woman that made up the majority of the Bible stories that we read, important people, the name of God, right? These are all pieces, they're relics of something that we carried with us. And while it may be kind of stunning, and I'm not here to say that you should rip down your mezuzah, I'm simply saying kind of their origin in many ways dealt with what we deal with every single day, which is simply the existential conundrum that is life itself, right? We feel connected to God and we want to feel more closely connected to God. Amulets aren't a bad thing. They're a good thing. They allow us to feel close. As Mimi pointed out, some people like them. In fact, the majority of people like them, and we still use them in a lot of different capacities and ways. Which is to say, I'm not down, I don't want to trash the amulet world here, but they really did bring to us a source of comfort, something that we need. Because as Lilith poses, right, bad things happen to vulnerable people. That's simply what happens. The response from that, the Jewish response, right, is the name of God that we carry with us, right? Why do we know that the name of God is important? Because it says it right there in the Genesis text, right? How do we protect against harm? The name of angels, in their name. You shall call out, and you will, right, be guarded from harm. Does this all make sense?
Yeah. I was thinking this makes me think of imagination, because everything's very rational and okay, but then actually that's our imagination can hold on to the amulet, and so it gives us a little power.
Absolutely. Kathleen, that was it. It's all about power. It's about the power in understanding, the power in what we don't know, the power of what we can control. I think amulets, in some sense, you're absolutely right. Amulets feel like we are in some kind of control about what we are guarding ourselves from. It's why we buy Volvos. Why do we buy Volvos? Because they're safe. Like we know that being in them, and right, you're driving, oh, they're safe, right? But we know that that's a choice that we've made. We're like, well, I've made a safe choice of car. I choose that because I know, right, that it has safety around it. That's why I choose to be associated with it. Whether the brand is actually safe or not, it's branded in a way just like Subaru, right, that give off this idea of comfort, right, of power, that somehow we've made a powerful choice in choosing what car we drive, one that keeps us safe. That is power, the power of that choice. Absolutely. Again, I don't think these are concepts that are like completely like off in space. I think they're ones that we deal with every single day.
Please, let's go.
So yeah, anyone, any other comments, suggestions? Someone wrote along. Oh yes, I'm sorry, that was a private chat. Yes, you may absolutely send it to me this week. Yes. Any last kind of comments, suggestions, anything that was striking or maybe just not striking, something you were just like, oh yeah, all of that just kind of seemed to make sense.
I want to know where we're going next week. Like, give us a little, like,
we're off to we're gonna be off to demons, animals, mostly demons and bad things. Because we started with Lilith. I gave you the solution. Next week it's mostly going to be about like what else could attack you. We're going to get a little bit into the demons because they're just ridiculous stories. We're going to get a little bit into like animals and creatures, and really just angels and demons is kind of next class. I didn't want to kind of take it in any big direction, but that's a big chunk right there of what a lot of magic and superstition can deal with. Yeah, Johnny.
Does Bigfoot fit into this?
Yes, absolutely. Does it squat? Is it hairy, long hair? Yeah.
Bigfoot's a girl.
Oh, Bigfoot's a girl.
We have
Will
proof.
this same link get us on next week, or will they send out another one?
It's the same link, I believe. It's the same link. Again, after both of our classes are done, I'm going to send out these slides, or I can send them out through ShulCloud, so you guys all have them. Again, this entire session was recorded today, so if you want to go back and rewatch it, we went over a lot of material. This was a lot. This was almost 30 slides. So if you didn't catch anything, it's not because like you weren't paying attention. We just like blazed through literal postmodern philosophy and theology, and we kind of landscaped a lot of territory here. So I don't want anyone to feel like they're lost or confused, but just know that we kind of took out a big bite, and kind of seeing the ebb and flow, as I've said, about the story of Lilith and amulets, right? The problem, the solution. And that's really what we're about here, right? Demons, angels, right? What's going to protect you from a demon? An angel, right? Do you remember this, right? Lilith bad, amulets good. Amulets good, amulets sometimes bad. Only good amulets are good. Bad amulets are bad. Like kind of how benign some of this is. It's kind of silly. Yes, it's like, yeah, like that's what it is. Have fun with it. Yes, Warren. I just want to say goodbye. Okay.
Goodbye.
Yes, that's
Thank
going
you
to
very
be
much.
it. Thank you. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. It is so good to see all of you. Come back next week. And I look forward to seeing you all then. Okay?
Hey,
Thank you. Bye-bye. Good
Bye,
night.
everyone.